One of the great pleasures of this kind of travel is that you never know where you're going to end up in the evening. And you drive all day and you drive all day and you explore and you explore and you take pictures and you tell stories and all of it, and you never know where you're going to end up. And then you get this amazing sunset. The shadow of the earth over its own atmosphere is that dark line you see above the horizon. The sun gone down, the ancient peaks and this ancient landscape. It's just something else, and it's what draws me to this again and again and again. And moments like this, the unexpected proves to be spectacular in every respect.
Through the fields of our past, feelings part our ways, keeping us close but estranged now. Dreams holding us closer, meadows of our youth, 107 days, but recalling it backwards. Our dreams holding us closer. So clear.
Driving across a continent twice turned out to be one of the most arduous yet most fulfilling expeditions I've ever undertaken. During the 7 weeks, I revelled in Australia's vastness, saw the matchless diversity of its coastline, and met one of its heroes.
Do you mind if I rip this off?
Rip it off. And a million of its insects. Hi!
It's disgusting.
I was both thrilled and tortured by its tracks, tested some new tyres, and was even paraded before the press. Nothing. And even though my plans were changed en route, I succeeded in my quest to drive from Australia's eastern to most western points.
Far away.
This is my story, and my daughter, Kate's, too. 8 o'clock, Saturday morning, ready to go. I had a message on one of my YouTube channels from a fan saying, please will you document the first 15 minutes of your trip out of Perth. My first reaction was, why on earth would you want me to do that? And my second reaction to that was, nah. But I will document the first 15 seconds. So let us begin at the beginning. On a not so ordinary Saturday morning, from my home, north of Perth, Western Australia, I head off, but first a brief visit to make to my local camera store before I get on my way. One last piece of camera equipment that I want to get before I head off on my trip, and I come to a place called Leederville Camera House. I do adventure travel films. A few years ago I changed brands, and this is my final piece of equipment, a Sony 100 to 400mm lens. Well, these guys did me a big favour last week. It's called customer relations. So I thought I'll do them a big favour. So, good guys. A competitive pricing, and they know how to keep photographers happy. Got 11,000 kilometres to go, and it all starts now. The light four-wheel drive truck that I'm driving is a Toyota Land Cruiser 78 series, sometimes called the Troopy or Troop Carrier. It's sold in some parts of Asia, Africa and Australia. It's a favourite amongst NGOs, being very basic, very robust, practical and simple to maintain. All of these people are now in the back of that troop carrier. And for those of you that love the troop carrier, now you know what they're really put through by non-governmental organisations in Africa. And how the people at Toyota, if you stop making that vehicle, there's nothing else. Nothing else will last that long on this kind of road. It's the last vehicle of its kind left on Earth. You can't stop making them. These people will suffer if you do. But most of all for me is that it is strong and dependable in very rough conditions, and that it's mine. I converted it to a camper last year before I drove one of the world's longest tracks, the 1,600 kilometres of the Canning Stock Route in Australia. But more about the truck later. On we go. Tomorrow is a big day for me because I'm going to be driving on a road that I heard about when I was a little boy. My mother is Australian and she would tell me about a place called the Nullarbor. And I would ask her, well, what's at the Nullarbor? And she said, there's nothing. There's nothing for miles, for day after day after day. It's this enormous area of nothing, and something in me that appealed to me, that there was nothingness. And was the very first Australian word that I learned, Nullarbor. It means treeless. It's a treeless plain of immense proportions. Today's drive has been fantastic. The last few hours have been magnificent. The sun is setting and these trees, these amazing red trunked gum trees are lining the road. I'm chasing the sun now. I want to stop at a place called Dundas Nature Reserve. I don't know that there's camping, but often these parks, there are no facilities, but there are beautiful camp spots where you can just pull off the road. What's very common in Australia is to literally just pull off on the side of the road and camp next to the trees, because so many people do this kind of traveling where they will do really long distance and be totally self-sufficient. They won't need a campsite, so they will drive like I'm doing until it starts getting dark, and then they will look for a place to pull over in the trees.
You are shades of grey, living day to day. Even when we're free, it's true. Differences are same.
A long train, but nothing, I have to say, nothing compared to the length of the trains that I've seen in the US. Night driving long distance is not something I particularly enjoy. I tried, but failed to reach a small game reserve where I knew there would be camping. So instead, I just pulled over and found a spot in the bush. I wake this morning in rather dreary surroundings. Last night, I arrived at the little game reserve far too late. It was pitch black, and had to use my new spotlights, which didn't work very well because they weren't set properly. I hadn't done that, it's a very ordinary campsite, but I was left alone, and what I was looking for, a place off the road, and I managed to achieve that. And driving in here and carefully parking the vehicle, there was an almighty thwack underneath the vehicle, which turned out to be that log under there. You put a wheel over one part of the log, you've probably done it, and the other part of the log, which looks like it's glued to the ground, goes boomf, and hits the underside of the vehicle. Anyway, this morning it's a quickish breakfast. Last night, didn't film it, there's a sign that says Adelaide 1,926 kilometres, and that sign is just over there. My expedition will take me across the continent of Australia. Twice. Right now, I'm here. Tonight, I'll be on the coast somewhere here. And then it's on to Adelaide to meet a group of fans. Then Melbourne to spend some time with fans and family. Then to the Victoria Highlands. I'm going to be there to take part in the press launch of a new tyre. Then on to Brisbane to meet the fans and reach the easternmost point. Then onto the centre, the red centre. In fact, Lambert's centre, the geographical central point of this massive piece of real estate, from then to the westmost point of this land. I'm getting exhausted just saying it. Long drive today. Breakfast. Oh, I have something to say about Australian breakfast cereals. The subject of breakfast cereal is something very close to my heart because as a little boy, I loved breakfast cereal. As a big boy, I loved breakfast cereal. Well, I loved breakfast cereal, really, because, well, here in Australia, I find the breakfast cereals very disappointing in that they're all like this, or they're muesli, which are completely tasteless and 999% oats because it's cheap, or it looks like sweepings from the cereal factory floor. They mix every cereal known to man and they put it in one box, and it's very popular here because you can get several different brands. This one here is one of the better ones, and it's really very ordinary. Of all the things I miss in England, it's the breakfast cereal. This here would be typical of an alternative to where I stayed last night. These designated stopping points, every couple of 100 kilometres there's one. Some have facilities, well here, facilities, toilets, that's about it. And places where you can get rid of your rubbish. So the penalty, of course, is noise. But they're located, like this one, in some rather nice places. And some of them are very large, like this one in fact. People are actually camped way off into the bush there, so they're actually a good alternative. The other advantage of stopping here, as opposed to just in the middle of the bush anywhere, is that you have safety in numbers. So, you know, people will, if there's an issue, you can go to a camper that's camped nearby and ask for help. And if you need a cup of sugar, then you'll also probably do well. Actually, I regret not staying here because I actually could have driven along the edge of the salt pan and camped way into the but it was night time and it was pitch dark, so the camping spot I had was perfectly adequate. I found 3 loose wheel nuts, not very loose but not tight enough. Bit of advice, we all know when you fit wheels, after a while, check them. Especially if you have painted steel rims, because you have paint between the flange and the wheel, and that paint gets rubbed off, and after a period of time your wheel nuts could be very loose, could actually come off. So particularly with steel painted rims, you have to check them more often than you do with other rims. This is Australia's longest straight road, 146 kilometres. It is, as far as I can tell, not the world's longest piece of road, but perhaps the world's 3rd longest dead straight piece of road. Let's go. The sensation of driving this extremely long and seemingly endless straight bit of road is actually not what you would expect, because it's like being at sea. If you could see all of the ocean, it would be absolutely intimidating, because you would see nothing but ocean forever, but you can only see it to the height of a fairly large ship. You can only see about 6 kilometers at sea. Here it's less than that. I can probably see behind me at most 2 kilometers behind me, 3 kilometers, and the same ahead, because the road is absolutely flat. Yes, I'm not moving the steering wheel much, but it doesn't make it any less interesting just because there are no curves in the road, and you don't get the impression that you know, there's nothing intimidating about the fact that it is just very, very long and very, very straight. It's like any other drive. There are just no curves. So that's the longest piece of straight road in Australia, and immediately after that there was a sign saying Central Western Time Zone, advance clocks by 45 minutes. This is a very strange thing about Australia. Northern Territory, they're half an hour out. Here they've asked for not 1 hour, but 1 hour 45 minutes. Why not 2 hours? Why the minutes? I don't understand it. It seems very peculiar because the whole world is based on hour zones, not 45 minutes. Anyway, it's 12 o'clock, so in effect it's now 1:45. There you go. That's the kind of really vital, important thing one tends to think about on a road like this. Refueling after using a little under 1.5 tanks. 191 a litre here. So the further you get away from the big towns and cities, the more expensive fuel is. In Perth I filled up at about 142. So 191 is quite a bit more. As I get closer and closer to the Nullarbor itself, the trees are becoming quite grotesque in the way that the prevailing wind has changed their shape. They're all kind of leaning northwards from the southerly wind that blows off the coast. At this moment, I'm probably less than 5 kilometers from the sea itself, and you can see all of the trees here. Everything is bending, and it creates a kind of weird look to the landscape. So again, tonight I find myself chasing the sun. I want to find a nice campsite in the Nullarbor, but I'm on the edge of the Nullarbor, but I'm not in it yet, and I was hoping actually to spend the night in the Nullarbor itself, the heart of it. I've probably got an hour and a half of sunlight. Yeah, hour and a half, maybe even a little less sunlight left. So I'm going to keep pushing on to try and find a campsite that's a bit special. Well, this is the Great Australian Bight Marine Park, and I can see some other people camping there, but I can see some roads in the distance. I'm going to go and see if I can find a camping spot, because you know what would be a great alternative? Actually camping right on the coast. So how about that? God, I love Australia. Look at this place. This is very nice. Gorgeous. Wow, isn't that beautiful? There are a few other people here, but I'm just going to move the car around, face it into wind. It's one of the penalties of camping near the sea will be wind. Traveling alone, I absolutely love the days. Absolutely love it. And it's an unusual feeling to be responsible only for yourself, particularly when traveling in areas where the phone won't even ring because you're out of phone contact. However, at night I do struggle with some loneliness, and it becomes more acute the longer I'm away from home. But at the same time, while I do suffer from loneliness when I'm at night on my own, I avoid other people completely. I don't want to be with other people at all. It's strange, but it's the way I feel. From this point I have 2 days to get to Adelaide, where I'm meeting with a bunch of my Patreon fans, and then on to Melbourne. So I basically from this point have 2 full days. I could actually do it in 1 day at a long stretch, so I think I've timed it about right. So tomorrow morning I can enjoy the Nullarbor, spend a bit of time, and revisit the Great Australian Bight, which actually is right on the edge of the Nullarbor Plain. The Nullarbor Plain literally just runs to the sea. Amazing. So beautiful. I feel quite lucky because I mean to be able to camp right next to the coast, on this coast with not much wind, very lucky. I have a lot of kit in my vehicle that has been given to me, just gifts, fans, when I go to various expos. Apart from all the Coke people give me, that joke is an ongoing fiasco. Thanks. I thought about it because the scarf here was given to me by Mark Holly, who is the chap that organised the Lexus 470 last year near Portland, Oregon. So I just, and thought, thanks Mark, appreciate it. What else have I got? Probably 10 items in total, scattered throughout the vehicle. Right, supper. I have my lovely wife to thank for that. Little Gwynnie made me some frozen meals because I'm not a very good cook. So I'm going to make a chicken curry. Well, this morning woke up to no wind at all, flew, heading further east. Nothing much more to say. What a beautiful morning. I was saying last night as I pulled into the campsite, boy, I love Australia. And I do, but what I was really referring to is the fact that there's so much space. Long distance traveling, you can drive for a whole day and just arrive in an area with no particular agenda in mind, just to drive and get there and find these beautiful spots where it is absolutely safe to set up a camp somewhere and in the stunning place. That's a rarity, I think, in the world. I'm sure there are many other countries with a similar thing, but it's in itself fantastic. That is really something. This is the Great Australian Bight, spelt B-I-G-H-T, Marine Park. It is part of the Nullarbor National Park. The perspective, if I stand even slightly close to the edge, it gives me a feeling of vertigo immediately because the sea is churning and moving. It really is quite disconcerting. The fact that a very, very large portion of the Bight of Australia, which is that circular chunk over 1,000 kilometers long, wide, is made out of these sandstone cliffs. And the Nullarbor, surprisingly, is not an Aboriginal name. It is from the Latin, meaning no trees. I'm on day 3 of my expedition to cross Australia, twice. One by the easy route and return by the difficult route. This first piece is almost all asphalt, but takes in some of Australia's most spectacular and, I have to say, dullest scenery. The road that travels through the Great Australian Bight National Park runs right next to the coast, so it's difficult actually to maintain a good average speed because the scenery is so spectacular. I'm sitting here doing 80 just because it's so beautiful to look out of the out over the now would it be the Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean? This part of it would still be the Indian Ocean. Yeah. I've turned off a little track. The road on the map splits and starts moving away from the coast very soon, so I just wanted to get another glimpse of this incredible coastline. So I've taken a little track and I just saw off the right. There's a storm out at sea. This really is something. This is an amazing vantage point because if I look west, that's the Bight. That's a big chunk of the Great Australian Bight, and in the far distance there you can see the cliffs with the sun on them. That is quite something to see. And I imagine the water here is very deep close in, so at the right time of the year there are probably whales pretty close to the shore. And having come down a small road, nobody else around. So now with the ocean very close to us, we're in the Nullarbor now. This is part of the Nullarbor Plain. Was going to spend the night here, but in effect I did. I just spent it on the edge of the plain next to the sea. I've wanted to drive the Nullarbor for a very, very long time. This is the Nullarbor Roadhouse, a major landmark in the area. Major, actually minor as well, because there's absolutely nothing else. The roadhouse is frequented mostly by tourists that consider the Nullarbor as one of Australia's must-do roads. If it wasn't for the fuel available here, this road would have very little traffic on it at all. I thought I'd get some fuel here, might as well. $1.91 a litre. Very expensive. The road through the Nullarbor, the road that links Western Australia with the eastern states, was not fully surfaced until 1976. It's part of the Eyre Highway, named after Edward John Eyre, the first European to cross the Nullarbor in 1841. Well, this is the Nullarbor. Actually, I was a little disappointed. I expected a vast area of nothingness, not a single tree anywhere, and that kind of didn't happen for me. And well, because I now understand that the Nullarbor actually is not where I thought it was. This is the Nullarbor, and it's nothingness. When my mother told me about the Nullarbor, she said it's this vast, she's never crossed it, but she had obviously heard it from other people, her grandfather or father, telling her about the Nullarbor and this vast area of nothingness. My vision of it as a child was endless yellow grass blowing in the wind. That is not what it's about. This is definitely a coastal scrub type semi-desert environment. It's very familiar to me. There are areas in Africa very similar to this, but none as vast in one uninterrupted space. But this to me is what I was looking forward to coming to. Just nothingness. What has surprised me though is the amount of traffic. Holiday traffic, yes, mostly holiday traffic, a few trucks. A lot of people come here just to see nothing. No camping tonight. From now on, it's just basically a rush through to Adelaide, where I'm meeting some friends, and then another rush through to Melbourne. So the fun really begins again in Melbourne in 2 days' time. Daybreak in the small town of Minipa. I'm looking for coffee. Not a soul stirs in Minipa this morning as I leave for Adelaide. Very good night. But everybody is asleep. So instead I'll just have to look at my truck. Now, tell me, who of you sometimes just look back at their truck and say, oh dear, that's good? I do, quite often. Actually more with this truck than any other vehicle I've ever owned. There's something about it. It just works.
I'll tell you a funny story though. We went to
An evening in Adelaide with some Patreon supporters was followed by a 6-hour drive to Adelaide, passing through the town of Nullarbor. Nullarbor has just been given a new lease on life by artwork on its grain silo. People now come from miles around to see it. The artist is Guido van Helten, and it was completed in 2017. I've been spending the last few days in Melbourne. This is my brother's place, and a little village called Warrandyte, about 35-40 minutes out of the city. Today I have the meet and greet, which is about an hour from here, and meeting basically my Patreons and in fact public YouTube supporters coming to see the truck. I suppose ask about the truck. It is a bit of so many people waving at me. It's become ridiculous. I can't concentrate on the road anymore. And come and buy some t-shirts and talk four-wheel drive.
Here's a present for you, Andrew.
What inspired wrapping paper?
Very.
It's a pot plant. That's happening today. A gripping account of the life and times of one of Australia's most extraordinary adventurer, Francis Birtles. Then I'm off tomorrow to the BFG KM3 launch. Thank you, that is such a nice gift. Which is in the Victoria Highlands. That is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the product just a little less than I am looking forward to seeing the Victoria Highlands. Less than 3 hours from the Melbourne Metro, the Victoria Highlands is described by themselves as Australia's premier cycling destination with soaring peaks, lush green valleys, historic streetscapes and fabulous food and wine. It's the chosen venue for BFG to launch their new tyre, the KM3. And that's because this place is also Victoria's premier four-wheel drive destination, with four-wheel drive tracks crisscrossing its hilly landscape. I've been asked to entertain some of the world's media with one of my best stories. Well, here they are. Time to look intelligent. I've never done that before.
What a surprise finding you out here, Andrew.
Again.
Everyone, this is Andrew St Pierre White.
I chose the one about being surprised while I was crossing the Kalahari solo and nearly scared to death by a lion.
No telephone wires, nothing.
My heart is beating. I was just next to the fire, next to the car. It's about 7:30, just relaxing. I heard the strange noise. There's a lion, and he's right here. He started roaring. So, I mean, I had stuff outside, that all the car doors were open, and I didn't think that there would be a lion around. So I quickly ran around, closed all the car doors, and I'm sitting in the driver's seat thinking, well, how am I going to set up camp to go to sleep? Because wherever the lion is, it's very, very close. Oh, sure. It gave me a fright.
Thanks very much, Andrew.
It seemed to go down well. I've spent a total of 12 days with the press, also helping out with driver instructor duties, so I'm thrilled to get back onto my own route again. Another driver change. From the Victoria Highlands, it's 2.5 days drive to Brisbane and Australia's most easterly point at Byron Bay, which means finding suitable camping spots along the route. This is a Wellington Caves caravan park. Pulled over, it's a little after 5 p.m. and I've just set up my camp for my trudge to Brisbane, actually to Byron Bay, to start my trip west. Today's drive has been the single most dull, boring, uninteresting drive in my history of driving through Australia. The landscape, 1 hour out of Mansfield, which is the town near where we were operating in the Victorian Highlands, to here doesn't change at all. The same. As a rule, a lot of Australia, when driving through it, there are places to pull off because it's bush. This part of New South Wales is not bush, it's all farmland. So it's fenced. So I actually started looking when I started realizing, in fact, that I might battle to find a camping place, just to pull off, and that I might have to come to caravan park at about lunchtime. 681 kilometers of the sameness. But you know what's great about this place? Check over there. That is the golf course, and those are kangaroos. An update from the road. I'm on the main road towards Byron Bay and Brisbane, approaching a place called Armandale. And it's, well, the country up to this point has been actually quite dull, hasn't changed at all, but now a little bit more hilly, a little bit more wooded, a little bit more interesting. I'm not going to make Byron Bay tonight. My plan was to actually camp on the beach, but my average speed is probably close to 70 kilometers an hour. The speed limit generally is 100, but you can hit 100 and stay there for a few minutes, and then there are roadworks, and then you go through a town. The towns, roadworks, trucks. Towns, roadworks, trucks. Towns, roadworks, trucks. Amazingly slow, actually. I had no idea it would be so slow. So while the GPS was giving me, and on the phone was giving me an average time, average speed, it's not even close. It's not even close. It said it would be. I would be here 9 hours, 35 minutes from where I left this morning. Reality, about 11 hours. So I will find a camp spot on the way to Byron Bay. It's a little after 4 o'clock, earlier than I will normally set up camp, but I've had a very long day today and not got as far as I would have liked. So I just pulled over near the town of Tenterton, about 30 k's out, and just pulled over at the side of the road and actually have a good rest and leave tomorrow. I'm 3 hours from Byron Bay, which would mean I would arrive there, you know, 7:30ish, and that's too late. So we'll have a good look tomorrow, and I'll be able to officially start the beginning of my Trans-Australia expedition. Times when I'm alone that I actually feel the most vulnerable is actually not when I'm in the wilderness at all. It's when I'm in a place like this. There's a farm gate here. It's obviously the back entrance to a farm property, but it's unlikely that anybody will come through here. But the fact is that when you're in the wilderness, there's almost no chance that anybody will disturb your campsite. I suppose in Australia, like Africa, one should, you know, if I went into that property, I'd be trespassing, so I'd have to go and ask permission. I'm on public land now, not far from the road, as you will soon hear as a car comes by. But it's that tentative sort of situation where, well, should I set up camp? You know, am I going to be all right? It's a slightly nervous feeling, and it takes a while to be in a place and then settle down in that place and feel comfortable with that place. The bird calls are actually really helping, because there's some beautiful bird calls around us, and I heard around me, and I heard a kookaburra not long ago. So that's kind of welcoming, but I'm starting to settle down, but it's you never really get used to it. Although, that said, the chances of somebody coming and causing me harm is really very slim indeed. I've heard from the locals that the only people in Australia that really want to cause you harm, they all stay in Canberra. And with the magic of media, we cut to the morning birdsong. Next stop, Byron Bay. Just seen the first sign to Byron Bay, 44 kilometers. Normally at this time during an expedition, I'm very excited, very pumped, very ready to go. Just as it. Not this time. I actually feel quite wrecked. I feel as if I've already just, and I, in a way I have, I suppose, but last night I had 11 hours solid sleep and woke up wrecked. There is the most easterly point of the Australian mainland. My job now is to travel due west. I'm going to try and keep as close to due west as possible, ending up at a place called Steep Point in Western Australia. That's the furthest westerly point on the Australian mainland. And this is the easternmost beach, Byron Bay. Big moment for me. I thought I'd have to come and try the waters of Byron Bay. Byron Bay is actually quite famous for young people who like to have a good time, if you know what I mean. They come to Byron Bay to do that. I've been in Byron Bay for precisely 10 minutes and I understand it completely. It's the kind of place you just don't want to leave. But leave I must. Down a minute. Well, here I go. Heading across Australia, through the middle, through the red centre. I've come here the easy way. I'm going back the difficult way. But before I head west...
Yeah, from a Rover lawnmower, it cost $8. It's the most expensive feature I've got in this truck.
This is four-wheel drive Aussie legend John Ruth, aka Ruthie. I've just popped in for a quick visit.
Cool, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, see that thing there with the wires
That's
going
the
into
sensor. John is helping me with a minor problem that I've had with my truck.
Dust.
it? Gets a bit of dust on it. It's got like a little vein underneath, a couple of little veins.
Yeah.
And when they get dirty, the sensor starts showing faults. Do you mind if I rip this off?
Rip it off. Rip it off.
Look at this. First modification. Come to Ruthie's place.
From Byron Bay, I've come into Brisbane and Ipswich, where I'm doing the final preparation before we hit the wilderness, the outback, the true outback, as I cross the red centre to the furthest most western point in Australia. Globalsat, the guys that did the electrical preparations for this vehicle, doing our final setup of the vehicle, and then we head off. However, from this point, I'm not alone.
Hello, viewers. Hello, internet.
Kate, my daughter, has now joined me, and apart from being good company, is operating the camera.
So I'm carrying 75 litres in the car's own tank, 20 litre emergency water in a separate can on this side, and then 10 litres. So this is really for decanting. If I have to decant from a water source, 20 litres is just a bit too heavy and a bit too bulky to move around with these, but 10 litres is easy. This is also very good for wetting trousers. It works extremely well, as you can tell. So every day at the end of the camp, while we might actually use it while we're camping, this, before we head off in the morning, is always full, and it's always behind my seat. And that's because in an emergency, my grab bag and my emergency water, and I'm out. So it has a dual purpose.
Okay, so Andrew has just gone off to go pay for our fuel. I can see him in the store. He's probably buying chocolate as well. We have so many Cokes, so he's not buying any of those because I think one more thing in this car and it would be, well, it's already maximum weight because we just filled up with petrol, but we definitely can't put anything else in the car.
We are now full, absolutely full. Full water, full fuel, and here are some chocolates for you. Because we put so much fuel in the car, over $200 worth, so that's free chockies for us. And the idea is that everything is now absolutely full, so I can feel the vehicle, and if necessary I can adjust the shock absorbers if I feel that the weight doesn't match their settings. That's the beauty of the B351s. And that's it, we're now heading to, Birdsville is on the GPS, we're now heading due west. Contemplating in my mind the road ahead. We're about to, the tar road is about to end, I think. About 50-60 k's ahead of us now. We're probably 700 kilometers from the east coast. Well, for the whole of the morning we've been driving in almost constant fog and light rain, and suddenly bam, the warm sun's come out, the sky's opened up, the roads have straightened, and we are now about 500 kilometers west of Byron Bay. Contemplating 5,000-ish kilometers of gravel road, red dust, bush track. It's a big deal, actually. It's a big bite that we are chewing at the moment. 3 weeks it'll take us to see more blacktop. I'm expecting the road to turn to gravel within the next 4 or 5 hours, and tonight our campsite will be near Birdsville, so we hit the Simpson Desert tomorrow. Kate, put on the camera and get in the car. Kate, 3 minutes in this car and she makes it look like a skip.
So we have stopped off in a little town called Charlesville. There's only one gas station though, so we're just filling up and then we're going to go find somewhere to either make some lunch or buy some lunch. Gonna go make some lunch.
Filling up with fuel will get us to Birdsville, and then Birdsville will fill up and then cross the desert. We've still got a day's drive to Birdsville. It's about 8.5 hours from here, that's the point. So it's half of today and half of tomorrow.
Hungry.
Well, we've pulled off at the side of the road. We made reasonably good time today, and I now have to, because we're in a cattle area, have to cope with what I regard as it's flies all over you. You got flies all over you. Flies, they're really a challenge in the cattle areas, and to me it is the most challenging part of Australia, of travelling in Australia, are the flies. So, but they disappear the moment the sun goes down. They vanish completely. So, and it's probably 20 minutes before sunset. So we're going to cut out. Just going to create a little bush camp. Set off in the morning. We are behind schedule by almost a day, actually. But oh well, no big deal.
Okay, so we've just found a campsite. We just pulled off on the side of the road. There's a rest stop about 3 k's up, but that would have really sucked. It would have been right by the side of the road.
Yeah, your tent.
Yep. Isn't this the tent that Paul used on the canning stock?
Yeah. Stop misbehaving.
My daughter Kate and I are camping at the side of the road on our way to Birdsville. We are crossing Australia through the middle.
You want a shower, Kate, wherever you are?
And we are about to hit real desert, real isolation in the Simpson Desert.
Apart from this campsite being remembered by the campsite for all the flies and later all the moths and biting mosquitoes, also for an absolutely magnificent night sky. Today it's more driving. We've got about 700 kilometres to go to Birdsville. Birdsville for me is where the true outback begins, although this is the outback, but it's one of the centres of the outback. And then from there continue west, crossing the Simpson Desert, which is for me the highlight of probably the entire trip. And I've already been on the road for close to 5 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that bit.
Just stopped to have some breakfast. Andrew is absolutely covered in flies. It's one on my hand. Oh, that is nasty. Oh, yuck.
What?
Your back is covered in flies. Yuck, get out. Ugh.
No, I'm not. It's you. You were speaking about breakfast cereals.
Well, you wanted to talk about
You had
breakfast
something
cereals.
very interesting to say about breakfast cereal. Now say it.
Okay, we just stopped to have breakfast and we found Alpen. Well, my mum found Alpen and she sent me the other side of Australia with Alpen for breakfast.
Alpen is an English product. Blue muesli. Best muesli in the world.
Yeah, 'cause it's not too crunchy.
And until you came, I didn't even know it was available in Australia. So this is a great day for mankind.
Oh, we can get Alpen in Australia again.
Yes.
And you've got to be really precise how you eat your Alpen in the morning, making sure that you have at least one raisin left for your last mouthful.
However, the great thing about Alpen is that if you eat it in outback Australia and there are lots of flies, if you can't find a raisin for your last mouthful, you can always sort one.
Ew.
That's a wedge-tailed eagle in front of us. He can hardly fly. Wedge-tailed eagle. On a kangaroo, on a dead kangaroo. The story behind the wedge-tailed eagle is that they will gorge themselves so that they're so full that they can't fly. But then when a car comes along, they'll want to fly. They'll always fly into wind. There have been stories of wedge-tailed eagles taking off on an approach, hitting an approaching car and burst open, covering the car in maggots.
because the bird has been sitting around so long gorging itself that actually the meat that it's eaten is rotting inside it. Whether these are bushtails, this is a bushtail, I don't know, but well, there you have it. We have seen on this trip already considerably more dead life and wildlife than my Canning Stock trip. For example, we saw a bush possum a couple of nights ago, actually pooed on me. I didn't mind, it was a bush possum. And red and grey kangaroo this morning, lots of emu yesterday, and as far as the dead life is concerned, really amazing, which just shows you how much wildlife there is in this area. We arbitrary 2-minute period, the longest time that we had to wait to see a dead animal was 20 seconds, and we counted that there was probably more than 10 dead animals at the side of the road per kilometre. That's the kind of roadkill. It's the roadkill. It really is something. There's so many dead animals. Can you see why so many kangaroos get killed? They have this magnetic attraction to vehicles. This is typically what happens. They see the vehicle, they're running away from the vehicle, but they actually run toward the vehicle. And they run towards the vehicles. If I hadn't slowed down, we would have hit it. Truck drivers don't slow down. They just drive. Amazing. Suicidal. There are obvious signs of the late rains everywhere. It makes for lovely pictures, but the flies that are here because of it don't make filming easy.
So we tried to get a drone shot. Flies. Billions and billions of flies. So we've had to abandon it because I can't actually even see what I'm doing with the drone. So we'll try again later, I guess.
Okay, so we've just gotten back into the car. It's pretty crazy. Every time we get out, we get swarmed by flies. He just ate one by accident. They're really, really gross. We tried to fly the drone. It's too windy, and to be honest, it's actually miserable because of the flies. You actually just can't move. You get out the car and you think it's all right, and then within like 1 minute, you're just swarmed and you can't move. So it's pretty disgusting.
This is a spot called Dion's View, about 200 kilometers from Birdsville, and you can get an idea here of the vastness of the landscape and the distance of the road ahead of us. It's pretty lonely travelling, but of course everybody kind of ends up in places like this. These are the stopping points where people congregate, and I imagine people have actually camped up here. But everything going fine. About to have lunch. Flies are pretty intolerable even in this wind. Gravel.
Okay. Gravel has begun. I'm going to go into four-wheel drive. I can see it's not very stable. Oh, it's not stable at all. Because these are automatic locking hubs, I can do it from the cab, but I have to stop first. When we get to the real rough stuff, that's when I will engage them in manually. You've got to stop all the way, clunk. Otherwise it makes horrible noises in the gearbox. Okay, about 260 kilometers of this kind of gravel. May is mustering season in much of the outback, so there is a lot of activity on many of the cattle stations. Here is why the flies are so bad. In Australia there is no natural way of breaking down cow dung. And in certain parts of Australia they actually import the African dung beetle to do that. But this is why the flies are so bad in Australia. Of course, we have been driving for the last 2 days through enormous, vast cattle stations, and this is just yet another one of them. Alrighty, how you doing there?
It's disgusting.
Pretty good, eh? Look at that.
literally eating me.
Oh dear. So now, what we've got to try and do, we've got to try and speed up and then wave them out of the car as we speed up and then gradually pick up speed. Right, that is the standard startup procedure, followed now by making a small crack in the window like this, so there's negative pressure, and then waving your arms around frantically and getting them to land on the window. And if they land on the window, they get sucked out. So we finally entered Birdsville. Long 3-day drive. And Birdsville is kind of a cultural centre of this part of the outback, and we're going to the famous Birdsville Roadhouse to get some fuel, and we'll look for another fly net as well.
We are busy looking for a campsite. We're in Birdsville finally after 3 days of pretty hideous driving, actually, about 8 hours a day, so we're pretty pleased. We're gonna go look for a face net for me, because outside all you can see is flies just swarming the car. So tonight is going to be really unpleasant, so we're off to go find a hairnet for me.
In preference to camping in the public campground, we've elected to drive a few kilometres out of town and find some trees.
But I've got a feeling it's going to become my friend. I don't know, it's got a hole in it.
Yeah, it's for a hat.
I have a hat, it's fine. But it's all the way in the back. I'm going to go like this.
Good.
They can still land on my face.
Hi.
It's disgusting. You smell.
You smell. Would you like to smell of it too?
On my feet. Don't put it on my face.
I just put it on my face.
Oh no, you're gonna die. Oh. This is probably the grossest thing I've ever encountered. Maybe that toilet at that lookout point today could give it a run.
The grossest thing with the flies.
Yeah, no, this is the grossest thing, honestly. Ooh, and I've got mosquito bites ripped open. Stings.
We've had it on good authority from somebody who's actually just driven across the desert that the flies are as bad, if not worse, in the desert than as here. And it's because of the late rains. Lots of water coming through that's just brought with it, they tell us, a billion mosquitoes followed by a billion flies, and they're just kind of waiting for the water to recede so the flies recede with it. But this is what we're going to have to live with for the next at least 5 days, possibly more, because the rains are widespread through this part of Australia, which is a real pity, because I need to be able to get beautiful footage and tell a story and everything, and it's miserable. It's being with the flies. It's not fun at all. Now the modus operandi is you do nothing until darkness falls, when the flies disappear and go and sleep. Up to that point you do nothing, because if you pitch a tent, they just fill the tent. You open them and fill the car. So you just do nothing. You can sit in an air-conditioned car or wear this, otherwise you will actually go mad, bonkers. Or we'll do what we're doing now, just wait for sunset, which is probably in half an hour's time.
Oh, it's so gross. It doesn't really do it justice. I'm crying.
Some of them bite. However, that one doesn't. Nor are they.
That's our dishcloth! Thank you.
Here's to waiting for the sun to set.
And the wildlife to disperse.
And the wildlife to disperse. See folks, only on Forex Overland do you get the real truth behind overlanding. You get the misery and the fun. And all the bad jokes. We've got other bad jokes. We'll leave them.
You.
Thank you.
Tonight we will be having rice with whatever I can find to fly on the lens. Yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to find. I wanted to cook up something a bit nicer, but it's windy. But thank goodness the flies are starting to disperse a little bit.
Catch it, put it in a jar to have and to hold. To save for later, you cannot trust it to come again. To wait for you to find a pen and fill the paper with the message that it wants to send. Grab it, hold it by its tail before it escapes. You know its ways and you cannot lose it, that's what you fear. So hold it up against your ear and very carefully listen to what it
The asparagus is ready.
Asparagus is ready.
Asparagus is ready.
Oh, well, woken up this morning. It's very cold, actually. Last night we had actually wanted to camp next to the Big Red Dune. Big Red is Australia's tallest sand dune, and it's a tourist attraction in the area and a big attraction of the Simpson Desert crossing. And we thought, well, we'd camp near the base of it and get ready to climb. But it's all private properties, all part of big stations. So we've had to come back into town and camp. The campsite in town was packed with grey overland, what they call grey nomads, and so we camped on a riverbed just outside of town, which is free camping and it's absolutely allowed. However, to put a spanner in the works, I have an eye infection caused by an insect that flew into my eye not last night, but the night before last. And I thought it was actually fine. And I've woken up this morning, it's all red, all puffy, all crusty. It's definitely infected, and I can't go into the desert with an infected eye because that would be stupid, because that's 4 to 5 days of complete wilderness and no way of treating this. So that's put a little bit of a spanner in the works. We'll see if we can find a doctor or something in Birdsville this morning who can treat me, give me something for it. Overlanding is not always sunshine and roses. Well, it is sunshine, not always, but it is now because there's the sun. But we got to take the rough with the smooth. So our whole trip hinges upon the fact that A, I can find a doctor, B, that there is a antibiotic eye drop in Birdsville, because if not, the nearest town of any size, and when I say any size, I'm talking about tiny, because this really is truly minute, is a day's drive away. That's how long it's taken us to get from the last, if not more. So this really is a very, very outback place. We'll see if we get lucky. Lucky day. Flying doctor was there. He saw me. Yes, looks like it's a kind of conjunctivitis. Couldn't tell if it was an infection or viral, but having been probably caused by the insect that went into my eye, more than likely bacterial. Gave me some drops. $10. That's cheap. I mean, when do you get anything of that value for $10? So it's off to the desert. Given that the flying doctor only visits every 10 days or more, we were very lucky indeed.
I'm pretty excited. It's the tallest sand dune in Australia. Yeah, I'm going to try to tackle it.
It's a landmark, you know, people come from, like we have, from thousands of miles around just to drive Big Red. So Little Red is the escape route. So
I'm going to try not to take the escape route.
Yes, well, we'll see. I'm not going to decide now until I see it. Because the thing is, with an overland trip like this, an expedition like this, you do not want to damage your vehicle. We've got thousands of kilometers to go on really rough tracks. You cannot risk damaging your vehicle because then your entire trip is like finished.
but at the same time you want excitement and interest, and so it's a balancing act, as far as I'm concerned, of when do you push the vehicle and when do you not push the vehicle, and this is going to be a difficult decision.
Well, we haven't seen it yet.
Actually, get in my eye. Went in my other eye. They're not particularly big dunes. It's probably not the size and height. It's probably the fact that it is just a difficult obstacle. And it's coming up now.
Big red sand dune.
That doesn't look even a little bit difficult. So there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe the big dune is the other side of that, because that isn't much. Anyway, we're going to prepare for our desert crossing now by tyres down, flag up, all of the bits and pieces we do now to cross the desert.
Wait, don't open the door, flies! Fly mask!
So, big red, huh? Big. You call it big? I mean, it's red. It doesn't look very big. So I'm going to go down to, can't see this properly through this net, about 18 psi, which is about 1.5 bar, something like that. psi. You are covered in flies. Unbelievable, Kate. You see, there's no precedent that nobody's ever driven these tyres before. Maybe I'm the first person in the world to drive KM3s on dunes and in thick sand. I don't know. Probably not. But anyway, they're new to me, so I'm going to let them down at a pressure that is familiar. What I would have let down my KO2s. Same kind of pressure, and let's see how they perform. So I've got something to reference the performance against. The change in shape of the back is considerably more than the front, which tells me how much more weight I'm actually carrying on the back. And that, to me, is about as low as I want to go on the back, looking at its shape. There you go, 1.6 bar, that's 21-ish psi. That's what I'm going to leave them at.
With the flies, Bunch just got in my mask and I'm just not coping with the flies. Oh my god.
There's likely to be other traffic in the Simpson, so to make ourselves more visible to oncoming traffic crossing the dunes, a dune flag is necessary. There you go.
Right.
We're about ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Low. Third is normally the magic gear climbing. I love this gear. So, to be honest with you, how difficult can it be? It doesn't look difficult. Into third. Okay, we're getting a little bit more difficult because this turning is the problem.
Really sandy. Looked cool.
Did it look good?
Yeah.
The sky and the orange must look really
Oh,
beautiful.
it's fantastic. I'm very sandy. Right, let's go.
Almost time for a Coke.
It's always time for a Coke.
I don't understand, guys. I don't get it. What is all the fuss about Big Red? It should be mediocre red. Now this one ahead actually looks far more difficult. It doesn't have a big sweeping curve, but it's steeper. It looks more difficult than Big Red. Maybe this is Big Red 2. 1,200 plus minus dunes to cross. How do you feel?
We definitely deserve a really cold Coke.
So, I learned something about my vehicle. The crunking noise was on these big axle twisters. These tyres are too big for this vehicle because it was touching the bodywork at maximum flex over those yumps. So, not good. Not good. Too big. Well, there's the desert in front of us. Pretty amazing. We've got 1,200 plus minus dunes to cross. How do you feel?
Psyched!
The track that we're driving on is called the QAA line. We're going to actually get off it quite soon at a place called Poeppel Corner, where there is an intersection between 3 states. And at that point we're going to be heading south and then west again, getting onto what's known as the French line. These two are the most well-frequented parts of the Simpson Desert crossing. So we're going to continue driving until nightfall because the flies are still terrible, and even if we have to drive until after the sun goes down, we'll do that just to avoid the flies. Hate wide tires. Hate wide tires. They're a pain and annoyance, and they don't help at all.
You heard it here, folks.
I didn't know you were rolling the camera.
Wide tires suck.
Yeah, the wide, it's the edge of the tires. If the tires were narrow, it wouldn't be hitting. Would have masses of clearance. Now, because of the width. So we have about 1,200 of these babies to cross. And our route is going to be, we're going to carry the French line, which is notorious for being cut up and broken up by lots of traffic. Then we're going to head south onto the WA line, which is prettier. Some of the dunes are a little steeper, but they're not nearly as cut up because there's less traffic. And then rejoin the French line. And this piece of our journey will take, 4 days.
A lot of traffic, folks. A lot of traffic. We literally just turned the corner and it's a forest. How crazy is this? There's just a random forest. And the sand is a different color. How amazing is that?
This is what the canning was like this. You drive and it's the same, you drive and it's the same, suddenly, boom, it's different. It was what made it magic. Magic thing to do is to drive in places like this. I absolutely live for it. It's a lot of getting here though, it takes a lot of getting here.
The song is the same now. It's you lifting us higher. We can see so clear. We can see so
Had to get out of the car. Been sitting down there for a long time. I just noticed driving past here a roof rack that's broken. I'm always interested to know what breaks on trips like this, what actually fails. And I was wondering if I could recognize what broke on this one. Here it is. Nothing obvious. Very obviously homemade, I would say. But no telltale, no fingerprints of failure, as engineers like to call things. Ah, I've got a fingerprint of a spike in my foot. So I just like to look at things like that to see, you know, why did they break? Where did they break? It interests me greatly. Anyway, we're doing good mileage today. We're quite close to the border between South Australia, Western Australia, and Northern Australia, or the Northern Territory. So we'll probably be there within a few hours. The stretch that we've just completed is called the Mungu Tiri National Park. Did I pronounce it correctly? You Australian guys, you always give me a hard time about my pronunciation of Aboriginal names. I'm going to try one for you. See if I get it right. I don't think it's Aboriginal, but I'm not sure, because you guys, I think you get it completely wrong. The word is Australia, and you guys call it Australia. How on earth am I supposed to get that right when you all get...
Poor famous man, just getting harassed. Yes. Okay, so let me just close that. It's pretty bumpy.
Rough bit coming up.
Yeah, rough bit. I should probably hold on. Yep, things falling.
Oh wow, look at that. That's a great big salt slab.
Wow.
Yo. Cool.
That looks fantastic. I'll have to get a proper shot of it in a moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
So wow. Look at that. The best part about these things is that they change so quickly. Everything goes a couple of hours and it's... I love this.
It's fantastic.
It's this. It's these crossings that make this track only accessible during the dry season. And not long ago, probably less than 2 months, this would have been water and completely impassable. And they only actually open the crossing once this is dry, but even underneath here this is very soft. You can see where people have tried to get across. This would be extremely difficult to cross in the wet, but the track is obviously dry ahead of us, so I'm not worried. But wow, I love these places. When it crashed, what did the footage look like? Do you remember?
No, I wasn't looking, I was steering. In case you didn't gather, we've lost the drone, crashed. And we've got absolutely no idea where it is, and all there is bushes that could easily hide a drone. And it's Mavic Pro, which means it's little, which means it's easy to lose. That looks.
I don't know how high it was, how much further away it was from the car, but I don't think it was far.
I don't think it was far either.
So I imagine it'll keep flashing for a short
short while, but not very long. Maybe an hour.
I wonder why it crashed, because if we can figure out why it crashed...
It crashed because it was flying too low, and I didn't take enough precaution. It was my fault.
No.
I found it!
That was a lot closer than I thought.
That's my first major drone crash, and it's looking in good condition actually. I think we got lucky. I think we got lucky. Okay. These things are pretty good at detecting things that they crash into, but not if they're traveling sideways. And I was tracking the car sideways and it hit a bush. That's why it crashed.
I think we should camp here.
I think it's too exposed. You really think so?
There are hardly any flies. Have you noticed?
Yeah, I have
Not being
noticed.
swarmed.
So in trees we're going to find it a bit more sheltered, and I think it's a bit more comfortable actually than out in the open. Looking for a spot to camp overlooking the lake. This is actually, Kate, this is actually really nice, and somebody's camped here before, so we're not making new tracks unnecessarily. This is a nice flat area here, or you can go slightly higher. Hey, it's nice and flat here, hey? It's good, eh? It's actually perfect. Yeah. And early morning we'll have beautiful morning shots. Eh? Pretty good. Pretty good. Very slightly down in the back. This has been the best day's driving from the whole trip so far. I'm just talking about my crossing from Byron Bay westerly. I'm talking about the entire trip from Perth to Byron Bay and now here. What a magnificent drive. Absolutely fantastic. If it wasn't for the flies, it would be perfect. Anyway, time for a shower and food. I'm definitely hungry. Cold these mornings. Magnificent sky, magnificent fire, great food. Well, not great food. We don't have any real cooks with us, so that doesn't really worry me at all. Sun coming up over the east, and we'll be heading, at the moment we're actually heading south. We're about to join the French line. We've been on the QAA line and then on the WAA line, which is a little bit further south. It means a bit of a detour, but I understand that the roads are not quite as difficult, not quite as churned up because there's less traffic, and it's a prettier stretch of the Simpson. So that's what we're going to be doing today.
So we just did a little shoot for Instagram. Got a few pics I think will be really nice. Into flies. And I put on a pretty white dress for it, and now I'm going to go get into my pajamas because, let's be real, who wears a white dress in all this orange sand? That's just stupid.
So now, on the French line, heading west again. And it's very, very gnarled, and that sound is these wide tyres touching the bodywork. I may have mentioned it before yesterday, and it happened a lot. So I'm having to take it easy and drive very gently over this undulating terrain because I don't want to damage the bodywork. And we don't know how long this is going to last, but speed is way down from what it was yesterday. But enjoying the drive. The sand is soft. The car is performing nicely. No other real concerns. Apart from the fact that we have nothing to worry about. This is Poeppel Corner, the point on the map which divides Queensland, South Australia and the Northern Territory. And these states have different time differences. It's daylight saving. So this is Queensland. It is now 10:30. South Australia, 10:30. It's only 10 o'clock in Northern Territory. Go figure. Now I'm going to now film you proof that you've now been to all of those different states. So you've actually been to every state except Canberra and Tasmania.
Is Canberra a state?
Well, it's a territory, but whatever.
Well, I think I'll skip that one. It's only 9:30 in Northern Territory because, I don't know, they're really, really strange, and they split it up by about half an hour because of daylight saving, so it's pretty weird.
On our dashboard we have a thing called the yellow brick. It is yellow, but it's not a brick. It is an electronic device that sends a signal to a satellite and presents anybody on the website a live tracking. And it only pulse, I've got it to pulse every 6 hours. So every 6 hours somebody can tell where we are, how fast we're moving, what direction we're moving, etc., etc. So if you want to go and have a look at my website to see what we've just done, because of course this video won't be live, by the time you see this video I'll be doing something else. But you can have a look at our trip on the link provided below. The wide tyres that I am testing are not matched well to the vehicle modifications, and the wheel articulation on the rough track is enough so that the tyres are hitting the inner wheel arch, and I've got to do what I can to remedy it.
So I'm going to take some of these out, put them back, or maybe I should just take them out completely. Actually, if I take them out completely, that's going to do less damage. I'm going to take them out completely. I don't like wide tyres. I don't think they have any advantage at all. It's going to travel. They're more of a liability than anything. I'm really struggling to find any specific advantage of wide tyres. Travel like this. I think that'll help. Except I've dropped one in the sand. The sand is incredibly fine, and it's benign. It's not sticky or particularly coarse. It's kind of soft and comfortable. Sand. It's completely filled up with sand. We're going to sort it out in the car. Quick bathroom break, and I'm finding shooting this particular series really difficult because of the flies. I mean, I get out to just, do a little vlog and just explain what's going on, and we just have to cope with so many flies. It's really quite unpleasant. Anyway, now the landscape is starting to change a little bit. It's become a little bit flat. This morning's technical drive was enormous amount of fun, very lumpy, very sandy, and fun. Loved it every second of it. It's starting to spread out now, and we're about to take actually another line going south to hit. So this is the French line, which is reported gnarly all the way. So we're going to take an easier line. It's going to mean a little bit of a detour, called the WAA line. And well, what can I say? That is what we're going to do. Beautiful countryside, but hopefully there won't be as many flies on that part, a little bit further south than we are now. But right now, we're just having to live with them. It's making things quite difficult. And of course, every time you get into the car, you let in 1,000 flies, and then you have to spend the next half hour trying to get them out of the car as the car is actually moving. So it's really awful. It's not much fun at all. So open it up a little bit. Fly along with the car, so until you see them, until you've actually got a bit of speed, they can easily just keep up with the speed of the car. And they're still keeping up with the car. Looking at our GPS, this is actually the very last of the salt pans we will see on our venture, because the reason why I mention it is because they're actually wonderful things. They interrupt the monotonousness of the track, and suddenly you hit this enormous expanse of white nothingness. And it breaks the monotony. It's fantastic. But this will be the last one, probably certainly on our crossing of the Simpson.